The glass tower of Voss Industries rose high above Manhattan, slicing through a sky torn open by thunder. Rain streamed down the windows like veins of silver, tracing the edges of power and loneliness that defined Adrian Voss. Inside the boardroom, the storm outside was nothing compared to the one he commanded with his voice. He stood at the head of a long obsidian table, his tailored suit sharp as his words. The board members watched him with a mixture of awe and fear as he spoke his rule, the one that had made headlines and whispered legends. "Don't fall in love," he said calmly. "Not with partners, not with clients, not with anyone who can cost you your empire." His tone was smooth, but his eyes were ice. To him, love was a liability, a distraction, a weakness he could no longer afford. Silence followed. Lightning illuminated the skyline behind him, throwing his reflection across the glass. He looked like a man carved from shadow and ambition, untouchable. But when the meeting adjourned and the room emptied, that illusion cracked. Alone, he crossed to his desk and opened the top drawer. Inside, nestled against dark leather, was a small velvet box. He didn't touch it. He never did. The ring inside was a ghost, a reminder of promises broken and a heart buried beneath success. He closed the drawer and exhaled. Every storm reminded him of that night 5 years ago, the night his fiancée's car went off the bridge during a storm, not unlike this one. The police said it was an accident. Adrian knew better. It was betrayal that killed her, a merger gone wrong, a deal that cost more than money. Since then, he had built his empire on control. He trusted no one, especially not himself. The boardroom door suddenly burst open. Adrian turned sharply, irritation flashing across his face. A young woman stood there, drenched from the rain, clutching a stack of papers. Security moved toward her, but she spoke first, her voice trembling yet fierce. "If you go through with that deal, you'll lose everything." The audacity made the room still again. Adrian narrowed his eyes. "And you are Lila Carter," she said, catching her breath. "Marketing division, temporary hire." "You just interrupted a closed executive session," he said, his tone quiet but dangerous. "Then fire me after you listen," she shot back. Her eyes blazed with something that shouldn't exist in a world like his. Hope. She moved to the digital board and with trembling fingers pulled up the presentation files. "The deal your team is about to sign," she said, pointing to the graphs, "is based on false data. The projections were manipulated. If you merge with Valentech now, you'll hand them your entire intellectual property within 6 months. The board members exchanged alarmed looks. Adrian's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, studying her work on the screen. The numbers were correct. The error was deliberate, and she'd spotted it. "Who gave you access to these files?" he demanded. "No one," she said. "I stayed late to clean up your data models and saw the inconsistencies. Someone's sabotaging this company." Her words hung in the air like lightning waiting to strike. Adrian should have dismissed her. He wanted to. But her conviction stirred something long dormant. A memory of another woman who had once defied him with the same fearless eyes. He dismissed the board with a flick of his hand. The room emptied, leaving only the sound of rain and her shallow breathing. "You realize what you've just done," he said quietly. "You've accused my senior analytics director of fraud." "I didn't accuse," she said. "I proved it." She handed him a printed report, her hand steady despite the tension in the air. Adrian studied her face for the first time. Wet hair clung to her cheeks, her blouse wrinkled, her voice raw. She was nothing like the polished executives he surrounded himself with, and yet something about her presence unsettled him. She didn't flinch under his gaze. "You're either incredibly brave," he said, "or incredibly foolish." "Maybe both," she replied. "But I'm right." A flicker of amusement crossed his expression before he masked it again. He turned to the window, his reflection merging with hers in the glass. Brave or foolish, she had just saved him from a billion-dollar catastrophe. He dismissed her with a curt nod, but as she turned to leave, his phone buzzed. A message flashed across the screen. She looks just like her. Don't make the same mistake twice. Adrian froze. The air in the room seemed to thicken. The sender was blocked. No name, no trace. Just a message that sent a chill down his spine. His gaze lifted to the window, where the storm still raged over the city. In its reflection, he saw two ghosts, one from his past and one who had just walked out of his boardroom. And for the first time in years, Adrian Voss realized that the rule he had built his empire upon was already beginning to crack. The morning after the storm broke over the city in pale grey light, but inside Voss Industries, the air was still sharp. And cold Adrian Voss sat in his corner office reviewing the fallout from the meeting. Lila Carter's interference had exposed a massive internal breach. Half the analytics department was under investigation, and the press was circling like vultures. His empire had been saved, but not without scars, and the woman responsible was now the most talked-about name in the building. She stood outside his office door, nervously adjusting the cuff of her borrowed blazer. He had summoned her without explanation. She entered and froze the moment their eyes met. He didn't look angry, not exactly, but there was something heavier in his gaze, a question he hadn't decided how to ask. "You exposed a traitor," he said without looking up from his files. "That takes courage, but it also takes carelessness. How did you know where to look?" "I didn't," she replied quietly. "I just saw patterns that didn't make sense, numbers that didn't fit. I wasn't trying to be a hero." Adrian leaned back, his tone cool and controlled. "There are no heroes in my company, Miss Carter, only people who understand rules and those who don't." He paused and studied her expression. "I have one rule. You already know it. Don't fall in love. It ruins focus, destroys logic, ends careers." Lila blinked, unsure if he was warning her or himself. "I'm not here for love, Mr. Voss. I'm here because I need this job. My mother's hospital bills don't care about emotions." That honesty hit harder than he expected. It wasn't flattery or fear, it was truth, raw and simple. It unsettled him more than her defiance ever could. He dismissed her with a nod. But when she reached the door, he added, "You'll be accompanying me to the Geneva conference next week. It's a high-profile merger, and I need someone who sees what others miss." "Don't mistake this for a promotion. It's observation." She hesitated. "Thank you, sir. I'll do my best. I expect nothing less." When she left the room, Adrian's phone buzzed again, the same unknown number, another message. "This one colder. She's already inside your circle, just like before." He frowned, eyes narrowing. He typed back, "Who is this?" But the message failed to deliver. The number vanished from his contacts as if it never existed. That night in his penthouse, Adrian found himself unable to concentrate. The sound of rain still echoed in his mind, like ghosts tapping on glass. He walked to his desk, opened the velvet box again. The diamond ring still gleamed untouched. His reflection flickered in it. Two faces. One from his past, one from the storm yesterday. The next morning, the company jet waited on the runway for the Geneva trip. Lila arrived early, clutching her worn notebook and coffee cup. Adrian stepped aboard without greeting her. His presence filled the cabin with quiet command as the engines roared. She glanced at him across the aisle. His eyes were fixed on the clouds outside, distant, unreadable. Halfway through, the flight turbulence hit. She gasped as the plane dipped. His hand instinctively reached for hers. A second too long, then he pulled away, murmuring, "It's fine, turbulence always passes." But when their eyes met again, there was a spark. Something neither could define, a warning and a question wrapped together. In Geneva, the world was watching. Adrian Voss unveil a billion-dollar merger. But someone else was watching too, a shadowy figure in the crowd, camera lens glinting with precision, the same one who had sent the message, the same one who knew his secret that night after the presentation. Adrian received an envelope slid beneath his hotel room door. Inside was a single photograph. It showed him and Lila on the plane. His hand over hers, and written across the bottom in red ink was one sentence: "You broke your rule already." The air in Geneva carried the chill of rain and secrets. The city lights glowed against the river like gold spilled on glass. But for Adrian Voss, the night was nothing but noise. After the conference, he locked himself in his suite, staring at the photo that had been slipped under his door. It wasn't just the image of him and Lila, it was the precision, the angle. Someone had been close, too close. Someone who wanted him to know they were watching. Across the hall, Lila couldn't sleep. She was still trying to process the way Adrian had defended her during the presentation. When an investor questioned her credentials, he had spoken in that deep, steady tone that silenced rooms, saying, "Miss Carter's insights saved this company, if you doubt." You doubt me." The applause had been thunder, but his eyes had held something softer, something dangerous. Near midnight, there was a knock on her door. She hesitated, then opened it. Adrian stood there, his expression unreadable. "I need to talk," he said. His voice low. She let him in. He handed her the photo. "Someone took this on the plane. I want to know how." She looked at the image and frowned. "Maybe it's nothing, just paparazzi." "No," he said too sharply, his tone darkening. "This was left in my room. It's a message." He moved closer, the tension between them thick enough to feel she could see the exhaustion behind his control. "You think someone is threatening you?" she asked. "No," he replied. "I think someone is reminding me of a mistake I once made." He turned to the window, the rain outside casting reflections across his face. "I lost someone once, someone I loved. She died because I trusted the wrong person. And now every time I see you, it feels like the past is circling back." Lila's chest tightened. "Then stop seeing me," she whispered. He turned and met her eyes. "If it were that simple, I would." The silence that followed was electric. The city beyond the window pulsed with lightning. His hand brushed hers by accident, or maybe not for a second. She saw the man beneath the armor, not the billionaire, but the broken one. The next morning the news broke. Someone had hacked Voss Industries' files while Adrian was away. Confidential data leaked into global networks. The name attached to the breach shocked everyone. Lila Carter security agents swarmed the hotel. Her badge was revoked. Her name flashed across headlines. Assistant linked to corporate espionage. Adrian ordered a private investigation, but the board was already in chaos. When he found her in the lobby surrounded by reporters, she looked pale and defiant. "I didn't do this," she said, but her voice trembled. Adrian's security chief handed him a tablet showing the login timestamp, her credentials, her workstation, her signature. He felt his throat tighten. "It's your ID, Lila. You're the only one who could have accessed this." Tears filled her eyes. "Someone framed me, you know that, Adrian." But his face was stone. The rule echoed in his mind. "Don't fall in love. Not again." She turned away, whispering, "Maybe you were right. Maybe love really is a weakness." As she walked out through the glass doors, cameras flashing, lightning cracking across the sky, Adrian stood frozen between rage and heartbreak, a storm building inside him, stronger than the one outside. That night alone in his suite, his phone buzzed again, the same blocked number. A new message: "She's not the one you should fear this time. Adrian, it's your brother, and the past is coming for both of you." Rain washed over Geneva like a warning. The streets shimmered under the storm as Adrian Voss sat alone in his hotel room, the curtains drawn, the city lights flickering through like ghosts on the wall. He hadn't slept in 2 days. Every file on Lila Carter, every digital trace, had been reviewed, but nothing added up. The evidence against her was perfect, too perfect, and that was the problem. It had been planted with precision. His phone buzzed, another encrypted message from the same number. This time there was no text, only A video attachment. His blood ran cold as he pressed play. The footage showed Adrian Voss, his older brother, the rival he hadn't spoken to in years, sitting in a dimly lit office talking to someone off camera. "Bring her closer," Ethan's voice said. Soft and cold. "She's the key to breaking him and make sure he sees it happen." Adrian's jaw tightened. Ethan had always been ruthless, but this was personal. He shut off the screen and stood at the window, lightning flashing across his reflection. He knew now that Lila wasn't the enemy, she was bait. Meanwhile, Lila sat in a detention room at Geneva International, accused of cyber espionage. Her wrists trembled as officers questioned her, but she kept her voice steady. "I didn't steal anything. I was framed by someone inside the company." One of the officers looked at her with pity. "We've heard that before." She whispered, "You don't understand. I know who did this. His name is Adrian Voss ours." Later, a black car pulled up outside the police station. Adrian stepped out in a raincoat, his expression carved from stone. He spoke quietly to the inspector within minutes. Lila was released. She looked at him, uncertain, angry and relieved all at once. "Why did you come for me?" she asked. He met her eyes. "Because I realized too late that you were never the threat." He took her to a safe house on the outskirts of the city, a small villa once owned by his late fiancée. The air smelled of wet pine and regret. She stood by the fire drying her hair. As he poured whiskey into 2 glasses, "I thought I could protect everything by keeping people out," he said. "But it seems the person I feared most has been inside all along." "Ethan," she whispered. "Yes, Ethan," he said flatly. "My brother wants what I built. And he'll burn anyone who stands between us." Lila's voice softened. "And what does he want from me? To make me remember what it feels like to lose everything?" Adrian replied. His gaze met hers, and for a long moment the silence was heavy with things. Neither dared say. Then thunder shook the house, and she moved closer, as if drawn by gravity. "You said not to fall in love," she murmured. "Maybe I should have listened," he whispered back. Before she could answer, the lights went out. A crash echoed from outside. Adrian's instincts flared. He grabbed her hand and pulled her behind him. Footsteps on gravel shadows, moving through the rain, security sensors blinking red. Someone was here. He opened a drawer by the fireplace, revealing a hidden gun stay. "Behind me," he said, his voice calm but deadly. The door burst open. A masked man entered, aiming a weapon, but Adrian was faster. A struggle broke out. The gun fired. The intruder fell silent. Thunder rolled again, and when the smoke cleared, Adrian was bleeding from his arm. Lila rushed to him, panic in her voice. "You're hurt." He looked at her, his eyes fierce and dark. "This is only the beginning," he said, and as she pressed her hand over the wound, the power flickered back on, revealing something scrawled. On the wall in dripping red paint, a single message: "You can't save her this time." The storm didn't stop for 3 days. The world outside the villa was swallowed by rain and fear. Adrian's arm was stitched, but his mind refused to rest. He kept replaying the moment the intruder's eyes met his before he fell. There had been something familiar in that gaze, something that whispered this wasn't over. Lila moved quietly through the rooms, tending to him, cleaning the wound when he refused to see a doctor. "You should be in a hospital," she said softly. He gave a faint smirk. "Hospitals ask questions. I'm not ready to answer yet." She wanted to argue, but when she saw the pain he tried to hide, she fell silent. Night. Adrian stood by the window watching the storm. The message on the wall had been scrubbed clean, but its meaning lingered. "You can't save her this time." Those words burrowed deep into him, twisting every scar from his past. In the early hours before dawn, his phone buzzed, another encrypted message. No text this time, only coordinates and a single line. "Come alone if you want to know the truth about her." He looked at Lila, asleep on the couch, curled under a blanket, her hair falling across her face. Something inside him tightened. She had saved him once. Now it was his turn to save her. He left without Waking her by sunrise, he reached the coordinates, an abandoned warehouse near the docks. The air smelled of salt and rust. Shadows moved among the crates, a faint light glowed in the distance. He stepped closer, his footsteps echoing until he heard, "A voice from above you always were predictable." Little brother, Ethan Voss, emerged from the shadows, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Adrian froze. "You set me up. You framed her." Ethan shrugged. "You took everything from me now. I'm taking everything. And from you. What do you want, Ethan?" His brother's tone was ice. "I want you to feel what I felt when you left me behind, when you stole the company, when you took her from me." Adrian's blood ran cold. "Who are you talking about?" Ethan's smile widened. "The woman you mourned all these years, the one you think died because of betrayal. She wasn't your tragedy, Adrian. She was mine, Adrian's world." Tilted, his heartbeat roared in his ears. He took a step forward. "What are you saying? She never died, Ethan?" Tossed a folder onto the floor. Photos slid out, surveillance shots. A woman in Europe with familiar eyes, walking through markets, smiling at strangers. "She's alive and she's working with me." Adrian's chest constricted. It couldn't be true. And yet, every piece of his past was crumbling in front of him. Ethan leaned closer. "You wanted to protect the new one, Lila, but she's just history." Repeating itself before Adrian could react, a shot rang out. The bullet grazed his shoulder, and chaos erupted. He dove behind a crate, returning fire. Ethan disappeared into the smoke, leaving behind only the echo of laughter. When Adrian stumbled back into the rain, his blood mixing with the water, he saw a black SUV parked near the pier. Lila sat inside, unconscious, her wrists bound, her phone tossed on the seat, a note pinned to her jacket. "Round 2 begins now." Adrian felt the storm break inside him as he whispered to no one. "I made the rule to protect myself, but now it's the reason she's in danger." And as lightning split the sky, he knew this was no longer about love. It was war. The sound of rain had turned to silence by dawn. But inside Adrian's chest, the storm still raged. The memory of Lila bound in that black SUV haunted every thought. He drove through the wet streets, blood seeping through his shirt, his mind a whirl of fear and fury. He had searched all night, and still, she was gone. Every contact, every lead had gone dark. Someone had erased her trail completely. At sunrise, he reached the docks again, the scent of salt and oil heavy in the air. The water shimmered like cold steel. His phone buzzed with another encrypted message. "Meet me at the old opera house. Bring no one or she dies." He didn't hesitate. The city was waking as he sped through the narrow streets. The opera house stood abandoned for years, its grand marble pillars cracked, its once golden doors now rusted. The air inside was heavy with dust and history. He stepped into the main hall, the sound of his footsteps echoing under the broken chandeliers. A voice came from the shadows. "You finally broke your rule, Adrian." It was Ethan's voice echoing through the darkness. Adrian's heart pounded. "Where is she?" Ethan laughed. "You always were predictable. Love makes fools of even the smartest men." A single spotlight flickered on, revealing Lila tied to a chair, her face pale, but her eyes alive. Adrian took a step forward, but Ethan's voice cut through again. "Take another step, and she dies." Adrian froze. Ethan stepped out from the dark, holding a gun, but behind his smirk, there was madness in his eyes. "Do you know what it's like to be invisible, Adrian, to build something together, only to watch your own brother steal it?" He motioned toward the upper balcony, and a figure appeared. It was her, the woman Adrian had buried in his heart, the fiancée he thought had died. She stepped into the light alive, her hair shorter, her eyes colder. "Hello, Adrian," she said softly. He couldn't breathe. "It can't be you." The name left his lips like a prayer, Serena. She smiled a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I warned you not to trust anyone. Not even me." Adrian's mind spun. Ethan turned to her. "You see, brother, she never loved you. She loved the empire we built together. She only returned to finish what you started. Lila's voice broke through the chaos. Don't listen to them, Adrian. They're lying. But the world had already gone silent around him. Serena lifted her hand and held up the velvet ring. Box, the same one he had kept for years, still unopened. You carried this all this time. She said you never realized it was the key. She pressed a button, hidden inside the ring. The lights flickered. Then every screen in the opera house came to life. Flashing files, bank transfers, stolen patents, every secret of Voss Industries, Serena's voice echoed. You built your empire on betrayal. Now the world will know. Adrian lunged forward, grabbing Ethan's arm. The gun fired, the sound deafening Lila. Screamed, the echo tore through the empty hall. Smoke filled the air as bodies fell. Silence followed, broken only by the sound of rain returning outside. When the smoke cleared, Adrian was on his knees, blood on his hands. Ethan was gone, Serena, too, only. Lila remained barely conscious, her voice a whisper. You said not to fall in love, but I did, and it saved you. Adrian lifted her into his arms as sirens wailed in the distance, his heart breaking under the weight of truth. Love had destroyed him once, but now it was the only thing keeping him alive, and as he carried her into the storm, he knew the war wasn't over. It had only just begun. The sirens faded into the night as Adrian drove through the mountain road, his hands slick with blood. Lila's head rested against his shoulder, her breathing shallow but steady. Every turn of the wheel felt like a battle between guilt and fury. He could still hear Serena's voice echoing through the opera house, her calm confession, her betrayal slicing deeper than any wound. He reached an old medical facility he once owned before he built his empire, a safe house with no records, no cameras. No ties to the Voss name. He carried Lila inside, laid her gently on a cot, and stitched her shoulder wound, his fingers trembling as thunder rolled over the valley. She opened her eyes weakly, whispering, "You came back for me." He looked at her and said, "I never should have let you go." Outside, the rain intensified. Lightning illuminated the hills, and for a moment Adrian thought he saw a figure standing near the gate watching, then gone before he could react. He checked the monitors. The power flickered. And twice the line interference was not from the storm. Someone was tapping his system. He reached for his secure phone and called Dr. Evelyn Strauss, the only person he trusted. "Evelyn, it's Adrian. I need a trace on an encrypted number. No names, no data." Leaks, her voice came through calm and low. "The one that's been messaging you?" "Yes," she said. "I already tried to track it. Whoever's behind it is using your company servers." Adrian froze. "What are you saying?" Evelyn exhaled. "Whoever is sending you those warnings is inside Voss Industries." The realization hit him like ice. The messages, the threats, every step had been orchestrated from within his empire by someone with access to his private network. He turned toward Lila, who was sitting up now. Her voice soft. "What if the messages weren't from your enemies, but from someone trying to help you?" Adrian frowned. "Why would anyone help me like this?" She hesitated because maybe they know something you don't. Maybe they want you to see what's coming. Before he could reply, the lights went out. A sharp sound cracked through the silence. Gunfire. Glass shattered. Adrian pulled Lila down behind the cot, whispering, "Stay low." Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Then a voice, cold and familiar, drop. The weapon. Adrian turned slowly, his gun aimed toward the shadows, and saw him, Ethan, standing in the doorway, soaked in rain with a wound on his side and a strange calm in his eyes. "You should thank me, brother," Ethan said. "I could have killed you back." "There, but I didn't." Adrian's jaw tightened. "You killed everything else that mattered." Ethan laughed softly. "No, I just finished what you started. You wanted power, I wanted revenge. Together we made a masterpiece." From behind Ethan came another figure. Serena, still alive, still radiant and ruthless. She stepped forward holding a tablet showing the live feed of Voss. Industries headquarters burning in flames. The servers destroyed the empire, collapsing. Your company no longer exists. Adrian Serena whispered, "Your fortune is gone, and now you're just like us." Adrian's voice was steady, even through the chaos. "Then you have nothing left to take." She smiled. "Wrong, I still have her." She turned the tablet toward him, showing a photo of Lila from earlier that day. Her phone hacked, her data traced. "We already have a backup plan. If you don't come with us, she dies." Lila's voice trembled. "Why are you doing this?" Serena met her eyes. "Because love destroyed him, and it will destroy you too." Adrian fired, but Serena disappeared into smoke. Ethan stumbled back, wounded, shouting, "You think this ends with me, brother? It doesn't end until you face what you really did." The roof above them groaned as the storm raged harder. The walls began to collapse. Adrian grabbed Lila, pulling her through the back exit, the flames chasing them into the night. As they reached the cliffs, the facility exploded behind them, the blast lighting up the sky. Adrian fell to his knees, clutching Lila close, and in the firelight, he saw a reflection in the glass shards by his feet, a small silver ring spinning where it had landed from his pocket. The same ring he had once meant to give Serena. Only now it lay between them like a curse from the past that refused to die. The explosion still echoed through the valley long after the flames had died. The mountain air was thick with smoke and silence. Adrian held Lila close as dawn crept over the ashes. His arm burned, his heart heavier than the rubble behind them. Everything he had built, everything he thought he knew, was gone. His company, his past, his brother, even the truth he thought he was chasing now. All of it felt like dust. Lila stirred against him, her voice weak but steady. "Where will we go now?" He looked at the horizon where the sun bled over the mountains. "Anywhere but back," he said, and helped her stand. They found an abandoned truck near the woods and drove south toward the coast. The road twisted through fog and memory. Hours later they stopped near a small town by the sea, a quiet place that smelled of salt and rain. Adrian found them a cottage at the edge of the cliffs, the kind of place where no one asked questions. He watched Lila sleep that night, her face peaceful against the flicker of firelight. He knew he couldn't stay hidden forever, but for the first time in years, the silence felt almost safe. That safety shattered the next morning when he opened his phone. There was no signal, but a single message glowed on the screen, an offline transmission. Time stamped before the explosion. It read, "She's not dead, and neither are you," before he could process it. The radio in the cottage crackled to life, broadcasting a news report about the collapse of Voss Industries. The anchor's voice calm, and rehearsed authorities suspect internal sabotage. The surviving founder, Adrian Voss, is presumed dead. Lila stepped out from the bedroom, her eyes wide. "They think you're dead." "Maybe that's good," he replied flatly. "Maybe it gives us time." But she shook her head. "No, you can't disappear forever. You have to fight back." He wanted to answer, but his thoughts were already unraveling. Who had sent the message? Who knew he was alive? He opened his laptop and ran a trace through the last surviving server. Nodi, he still controlled the screen, flickered once, twice. Then a video opened automatically, a recording from the night of the explosion. The camera showed Serena standing in a dark room, speaking directly to the lens. "If you're seeing this, Adrian, then you survived. Good. I wanted you to. I told Ethan not to kill you because I want you to watch what happens next. I'm not after your money or your empire. I'm after the truth you buried." The screen went black, replaced by another image, a digital document encrypted but marked with the Voss Industries insignia. Lila leaned over his shoulder. "What is that?" He opened it. Slowly, lines of text appeared. "Confidential report. Voss Biomedical Division experiment. 47 classified subject test termination. Date 5 years ago, the date of Serena's so-called death." Adrian's breath caught. She wasn't just part of a merger gone wrong. She had been part of an illegal experiment. The crash wasn't an accident. She had vanished to hide the evidence. The sound of a car outside broke the silence. Adrian moved to the window. A black sedan was parked on the hill. Two figures stepped out, one holding a phone, the other wearing a grey coat with the Voss insignia on the sleeve. The same symbol on the file. He turned to Lila. "Stay inside." She grabbed his arm. "No, not again. You can't face them alone." He looked at her, his eyes dark with resolve. "This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about ending what started all this." He stepped out into the wind. The men approached calmly. One raised a phone, showing a live video feed. Serena, standing in a lab surrounded by monitors, she smiled when she saw him on screen. "Hello, Adrian. Welcome back to life. You still don't understand. You were never meant to survive." And as her image faded, the men reached for their weapons. Adrian realized the truth. Serena hadn't just faked her death. She had become something far more dangerous than either of them could imagine. She wasn't trying to destroy his empire. She was building her own. The first shot rang out across the cliffs, and the war for the truth had just begun. The waves below the cliffs crashed against the rocks with the fury of 1,000 secrets. Adrian stood at the edge, soaked in sea spray, and blood staring at the horizon where the sky burned red. The men who had come for him were gone, their bodies lost to the tide. But the words Serena had spoken echoed inside him. "You were never meant to survive." He turned back toward the cottage where Lila waited. Her face pale, her eyes full of fear. She had seen the gunfire from the window when he entered. She rushed to him, wrapping her arms around his torn shirt. He whispered, "It's over," but even as he said it, he knew it wasn't. She looked at him, searching his face for truth, her voice trembling. "What did they want from you, Adrian?" Met her gaze, "Nothing. They already have everything. They wanted me dead, and my name erased, but someone else is still pulling the strings." He went to his laptop again, the encrypted file from Serena still open, but this time there was more, a hidden folder unlocked by a sequence of codes from his old system. Inside were documents labeled Project Origin, each file stamped with the same date 5 years ago, the day of Serena's supposed death. Lila read over his shoulder, her hand covering her mouth. It was all there. Financial records, biomedical research, and at the center of it, an entry marked Subject 01, Serena Voss status. Altered Adrian's eyes widened as he scrolled through the report. It detailed an experimental program to extend human cellular regeneration. Using synthetic memory transfer, it was never approved, never meant for testing, but Serena had volunteered. She hadn't died. She had transformed herself into something unrecognizable. Soft beep cut through the room. His computer connected to a new feed. The camera flickered on, showing Serena alive, more alive than ever, standing in a sterile white lab. She smiled when she saw him. "I wondered when you'd finally open that file." Her tone was calm, controlled. "You see, Adrian, you always thought you were saving the world with your company, but I was saving myself." "What are you trying to do?" he demanded. She tilted her head. "I already did it. I built something you couldn't destroy, an empire without greed, without weakness, without love." Lila stepped forward. "Serena, you don't have to do this." Serena's smile faded. "Oh, but I do, because the moment I died, he became a god, and gods deserve to fall." Before Adrian could answer, the feed shifted. Alarms blared through the cottage. The walls shook. An explosion erupted down the hill. They ran outside, flames swallowing the path. The sedan that had brought the men earlier was engulfed in fire. Adrian realized too late this was a setup. Serena had tracked their location through the laptop. He grabbed Lila's and ran into the forest branches, whipping against their faces, the smoke following them like a living thing behind them. The cottage collapsed into a wall of flames. They ran until the forest thinned and the sound of the sea grew louder ahead. was an abandoned lighthouse rising from the cliffs, a beacon long dead. Adrian led her inside, the spiral stairs creaking under their feet. At the top, they found an old radio still functional. He tried to send a signal, but before he could speak, a voice came through, already waiting for him. "Hello, Adrian," the voice said, deep, familiar, and cold. It was Ethan again, weak but alive. "Serena was right about one thing. You can't kill the past. You can only watch it come for you." Then silence. Adrian gripped the radio, his knuckles white. Lila stood beside him, trembling. "What does he mean?" Adrian's voice broke slightly. "He means Serena's not working alone." The wind howled outside. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the cliffs below. In that brief light, Adrian saw movement, dozens of figures approaching through the storm, dressed in black, carrying weapons, the reflection of fire in their eyes. He turned to Lila. "This is it. They found us." She looked up at him and whispered, "Then we fight together." And as thunder rolled over the ocean, Adrian Voss, the man who once swore never to love again, realized that love was no longer his weakness. It was his only weapon. The night split open with thunder. The storm howled across the cliffs, and lightning painted the sea below in flashes of silver and fire. The black-clad soldiers moved through the rain like shadows, their weapons gleaming as they closed in on the lighthouse. Adrian stood at the top, his breath steady, his heart no longer cold. Fear was gone, replaced by something sharper, a promise he had made to himself long ago. No one else would die because of him. Lila loaded the last of the old flare rounds she had found in a rusted drawer. Her hands shook, but her voice was firm. "They're surrounding us." Adrian looked at her, his eyes fierce. "If they want a war, they'll get one." He ripped open the emergency panel in the wall, revealing an old power grid, and flipped the switches. The lighthouse light roared to life for the first time. In decades, casting a blinding beam across the sea, the soldiers hesitated as the beam swept over them. The moment of confusion was enough. Adrian fired the first shot, the echo swallowed by thunder. Lila followed, covering his flank. Every burst of lightning revealed chaos below men, scattering, shouting. Serena's voice suddenly came through the radio like poison in the air. "You can't stop this. Adrian, you're fighting evolution." He grabbed the radio, his voice steady. "No, Serena, I'm fighting what you became." The beam from the lighthouse began to flicker, Serena's interference signals shutting down the grid. The light dimmed, the shadows crept closer. Lila's breathing grew faster. She whispered, "If they reach the stairs, we're finished." Adrian's gaze shifted to the old generator below the tower, his mind racing. "If I can overload it, it'll blow the cliff and take them with it. You'll have to run." She shook her head. "No, I'm not leaving you." He stepped closer, the storm around them deafening. "Listen to me, Lila. If I don't end this, she wins. If I do, we both live." He cupped her face. Lightning framed them in pale blue light, rain running down their cheeks. He kissed her once, fierce and trembling. "Remember what I said. Don't fall in love." She whispered against his lips, and he answered, "I already did." Then he ran down the stairs. Bullets ricocheted off the walls, sparks flying. Lila screamed his name, but he was already gone into the storm below. He reached the generator wires, sparking. Like veins of lightning, he ripped the panel open. The system roared to life. Serena's voice filled the room. "You won't destroy me." "Adrian, this was always meant to happen," he whispered. "Maybe, but it ends now." And slammed the main lever. The explosion tore through the cliff. The lighthouse shuddered, then erupted in a pillar of fire. Lila was thrown to the ground as the tower crumbled. She crawled to the edge, screaming his name, but the storm swallowed everything. Hours later, when the sun rose over, the shattered coastline rescuers found nothing but debris. The sea was calm again, as if nothing had happened. Days passed, weeks, and the world moved on. News networks reported Adrian Voss confirmed dead. Serena Voss missing, presumed gone forever. The empire of Voss Industries vanished into myth. But months later, far away in a small coastal village in Greece, a woman named Lila Carter walked through a quiet market. Her hair tied back, the salt wind in her face. She stopped at a stall where a man was carving small wooden lighthouses, his back to her. When he turned, their eyes met, and she dropped the bag in her hands. Adrian. He smiled, the scar on his temple, faint beneath the morning light. "I told you I'd find you." She ran to him, tears breaking. Free as he whispered against her ear, "I destroyed the empire, but I saved what mattered most. You behind them." The sea stretched endlessly, calm and blue, the world at peace once more. And though he had once sworn never to fall in love again, the man who built empires from ice had learned that sometimes the heart must break before it learns how to live.